A young designer faces humiliation and rejection, only to turn her pain into global recognition through a single dress. The grand hall shimmered under golden lights, every corner filled with laughter, music, and the delicate scent of expensive perfume. Crystal chandeliers reflected on polished floors, and guests mingled in their finest designer outfits. Amara stood at the threshold, her heart pounding, clutching the small strap of her handmade blue and white dress. Every eye in the room seemed to sweep over her, some with curiosity, others with polite indifference. But she felt exposed, like a fragile piece of glass in a world of diamonds. She took a careful step forward. I can do this. I just have to be invisible. Just blend in. Her hands trembled slightly, smoothing the soft fabric of her dress. It was simple, stitched from leftover scraps, but to her, it was a piece of herself, each stitch a whisper of who she had always been. Then Lydia appeared, gliding into the room in a gown that glittered like molten gold. Cameras flashed, and whispers followed her every step. Lydia's eyes locked on Amara, and a cruel smile spread across her face. "Amara," she said, her voice deliberately loud, dripping with mock sweetness. "Did you make that from curtains again?" Laughter erupted around the room. Some guests tried to hide their smiles, others exchanged glances, unsure if they should join in. Amara felt her chest tighten, every heartbeat echoing in her ears. Why does it always have to hurt like this? She thought. She wanted to shrink, to disappear into the polished floors beneath her feet. Her mother, Mrs. Collins, looked at her sharply, disappointment cutting through the glow of celebration. "You should have just let Lydia help you dress," she said. "You always embarrass this family." The words hit like shards of glass, sharp and cold. Amara forced a small smile, hiding the sting in her eyes, though tears threatened to spill. She moved toward a quiet corner of the hall, each step deliberate, careful. A soldier retreating from a battlefield where the enemy was her own family. Around her, a reminder that she did not belong here. She sank into the shadowed corner, clutching her small purse like a lifeline. The laughter still echoed, the glint of luxury mocking her simplicity. Am I really so invisible, or have they always been blind to who I am? She thought. She sipped from her glass quietly, pretending to blend in, pretending that the cruel words did not pierce her heart. For a moment, she let herself breathe, feeling the gentle hum of the music under the chatter. She remembered the quiet moments as a child, sitting by the window with scraps of fabric, imagining dresses that could hold her dreams. Those dreams felt fragile tonight, but they were still hers. And in that small, quiet corner, hidden from the flashing cameras and polished shoes, Amara understood something profound. True strength is not measured by applause or attention. It is measured by the courage to keep moving forward, even when the world laughs at you. Sunlight spilled softly through the small bedroom window, casting a warm glow on a cluttered little desk covered with scraps of fabric, colored pencils, and tiny sketches. Young Amara sat cross-legged on the floor, scissors in hand, carefully cutting shapes from leftover cloth. Every piece of fabric she touched seemed to whisper possibilities, and every sketch told a story she could almost see come alive. Her father knelt beside her, his eyes gentle and encouraging. "Look at this, Amara," he said, pointing to a sketch she had folded awkwardly. "Your designs are not just dresses. They're dreams you're bringing to life." She looked up at him, her eyes shining. He believes in me, even when no one else does, she thought, a small smile spreading across her face. But the warmth of those moments was often shadowed by her mother's sharp gaze from the doorway. Mrs. Collins frowned as she watched, muttering about proper behavior and elegance. "Amara, you should focus on being like Lydia," she said, her tone cold. "Classy, presentable, someone the world will admire." The words landed heavily on young Amara's shoulders, but she didn't stop cutting or sketching. Meanwhile, Lydia twirled past, her brand new dress glinting in the sunlight. Everyone seemed to notice her first. The way she moved, the way she smiled, the way the room bent toward her presence. Amara watched quietly, a twinge of envy mixing with her resolve. Why does she get all the praise just for wearing pretty things? She wondered, her small fingers smoothing the edges of the fabric in front of her. Despite the contrast, the little room felt like a sanctuary. Each piece she stitched, each pencil stroke, carried her heart. She imagined gowns flowing across ballrooms, vibrant and alive, worn by women who felt strength in every seam. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "My little designer, one day the world will wear your art." Even when her mother criticized and Lydia's presence seemed to overshadow her, Amara's passion never wavered. She learned that creativity was not about applause or wealth or being noticed. It was about the quiet joy of shaping something beautiful from nothing, of giving life to ideas that existed only in her mind. And as she pressed the fabric carefully, threading each stitch with love and hope, young Amara felt a certainty that would carry her through years of doubt and rejection. Her art was real, and it mattered, even if the world did not yet see it. Sometimes, the most powerful dreams are nurtured in silence, far from applause, growing quietly until they are ready to bloom. The campus was alive with chatter, the hum of sewing machines, and the rustle of fabric across work tables. Amara walked through the halls of fashion school, sketchbook clutched tightly to her chest, imagining the gowns she could create, the colors she could blend, the stories she could tell through fabric. Every day, she poured herself into her work, losing herself in designs that felt like extensions of her own soul. But at home, the world outside the school doors felt heavier, harsher. Mrs. Collins's words echoed relentlessly, sharper than any teacher's critique. "Fashion won't feed you, Amara. Stop wasting time. Learn to be practical like Lydia." Each visit home chipped away at her confidence. Even small accomplishments seemed invisible under the weight of constant judgment. Amara tried to explain, tried to show her mother sketches, tried to share her ideas. But they were dismissed with a flick of the hand, a sigh, a comparison to Lydia's polished, effortless elegance. And the loneliness of being unseen, of being misunderstood, grew deeper. Why does following my dreams feel like a betrayal? She wondered quietly, a pang of frustration twisting in her chest. Eventually, the pressure became unbearable. The night she packed her few belongings, Amara's room felt impossibly large, echoing with emptiness. Every folded shirt, every sketch, every spool of thread seemed to whisper goodbye to a dream that the world wasn't ready to accept. Tears fell quietly as she folded the last fabric into a box, the weight of disappointment heavy on her shoulders. Moving into a small, modest apartment on the edge of town, Amara faced a different kind of silence. The walls were bare, the space small, but slowly, she began to fill it with her world. Rolls of fabric stacked neatly, sketches pinned to the walls, a sewing machine humming softly in the corner. The apartment became a refuge, a place where her passion could breathe without criticism or judgment. She took small jobs as a seamstress for local boutiques. The pay was meager, the work demanding, but each stitch reminded her of her father's encouraging words, the spark of creativity he had always nurtured. She learned to see beauty in what others discarded. Torn clothes, scraps of lace, pieces of fabric that seemed worthless. And to her, they weren't just scraps. They were stories, waiting to be told, waiting for someone to care enough to give them life. Every evening, as the city lights flickered outside her window and the hum of her machine filled the quiet apartment, Amara reminded herself why she persisted. She might have left the halls of formal education, but she had not left her dream. She had not abandoned herself. Even in the solitude, she began to understand that true creativity was not shaped by applause, approval, or inherited wealth. It was born from persistence, from resilience, and from the courage to keep creating, no matter the obstacles. Sometimes, the hardest choices lead us to the places where our true purpose begins. The small apartment smelled faintly of fabric, thread, and hope. Amara sat at her worn sewing machine, hands moving rhythmically over scraps of cloth that others had discarded without a second thought. Each piece, torn lace, faded silk, frayed edges, felt alive under her fingers, as if it carried stories she alone could hear. Slowly, stitch by stitch, She began to weave not just fabric, but fragments of her own heart into something beautiful. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the machine and the occasional sigh escaping her lips. The city lights outside flickered against the walls, but inside, time seemed to stand still. Why does the world see scraps as worthless, when to me, they hold so much possibility? She wondered, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Tio leaned against the doorway, watching her work with a gentle smile. You know, Amara, he said softly, not everyone can take broken pieces and turn them into something this meaningful. You're not just sewing. You're telling a story. Amara paused, looking up at him. His words, simple as they were, felt like sunlight breaking through a cloudy sky. She smiled faintly but continued her work, cutting, pinning, stitching. Each design carried her emotions. A swirl of blue for quiet sadness, a bold splash of red for courage, gold threads that spoke of hope surviving pain. The scraps that once seemed useless now became expressions of her resilience. She found that the more she poured herself into her work, the lighter her heart felt. Even when fatigue weighed heavily on her shoulders and the night grew long, Amara refused to stop. Each creation reminded her of her father's encouragement, of his unwavering faith in her hands, and of the dreams she had once whispered to herself by the window as a child. Her mother's disapproval and Lydia's cold glances were distant echoes now, fading against the quiet conviction that she was building something real, something true. Tio reached over and touched her shoulder. You're not broke, Amara, he said firmly. You're creating. That matters more than anyone's approval. Your talent has value, even if they don't see it yet. Amara's eyes glistened. He believes in me. Maybe that's enough for now, she thought, letting herself feel a flicker of peace. As the night deepened, Amara looked around the small apartment, at piles of fabric transformed into gowns, at sketches pinned to the walls like little windows into her soul. A quiet warmth filled her chest, a sense of purpose that had nothing to do with wealth or fame. Here, in her tiny sanctuary, she was free, and in that moment, she understood. Beauty is not only found in perfection or luxury. It is born from care, passion, and the courage to create something meaningful from what others overlook. The party hall was alive with soft music, clinking glasses, and the low murmur of conversation. Amara moved quietly among the guests, her heart still carrying the weight of past embarrassments, her handmade dress simple yet full of meaning. She tried to blend into the background, hoping the night would pass without drawing attention. But then Lydia, radiant in a sparkling imported gown, raised her glass and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. Guess what? She began, a gleam of pride in her eyes. David Mensa personally invited me to his private fashion showcase next week. Gasps and whispers rippled through the crowd. Amara froze, her chest tightening as the reality sank in. The man she had admired from afar had recognized her sister instead of her. Lydia's eyes swept the room, finally landing on Amara. A bitter, mocking smile played on her lips. Of course, she said, her voice sweet yet sharp. He wants real designers, not tailors who patch rags together. Laughter broke out among some guests, polite at first, then genuine for those who dared. Amara's hands clenched at her sides, her throat tight, yet she remained still, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. Why does she always have to hurt me in front of everyone? Amara thought, the sting of betrayal fresh and deep. Her vision blurred slightly as she struggled to hold back tears. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but her voice felt small, fragile, and powerless in the glow of Lydia's arrogance. Before she could retreat, Tio stepped forward. His eyes met Amara's, and he spoke firmly, clearly, with quiet authority. At least she makes something beautiful with her own hands, he said. Not everyone needs expensive fabric to have talent. The room went silent for a heartbeat, the hum of chatter fading as his words settled over the crowd. Lydia's smile faltered, and even some guests seemed unsure of how to respond. Amara's heart ached at the public display of her sister's jealousy, but she knew that rising to an argument would not give her peace. She reached out briefly to touch Tio's arm. Let it go, she whispered, her voice soft, yet steady. Silence can speak louder than any words, she thought. With measured steps, she walked toward the quiet exit, each movement a reminder of the strength she had quietly nurtured over years of struggle. Outside, the music and laughter of the party seemed distant, almost unreal, as the night air wrapped around her. Though her heart was heavy, she felt a spark of resolve. The world might see her as small or simple, but she knew her worth and the value of her work. Lydia's words could not undo the years of dedication and love stitched into every piece she had ever created. In that quiet moment of retreat, Amara learned a vital truth. Courage is not always loud, and triumph does not always arrive in applause. Sometimes, it begins in walking away with dignity, letting the work speak for itself. The rain fell softly at first, then heavier, soaking the streets in shimmering reflections of streetlights. Amara walked alone, her heels clicking against the wet pavement, her blue and white dress clinging to her. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Each drop of rain mirrored the heaviness in her heart. Mockery, embarrassment, and the quiet ache of being unseen. Could the world ever see me for who I truly am? She thought, her mind spinning with doubt and hurt. Then a sleek black car slowed beside her. The window rolled down, and a calm, familiar voice spoke. "Miss Collins?" Amara froze, her heart skipping a beat. A tall man stepped out, umbrella in hand, dressed in a dark suit that seemed to glow even in the rain. His eyes were kind, yet attentive, and there was a calm confidence in his presence that made the storm around them feel smaller, almost gentle. "I'm David Mensah," he said, smiling softly. Amara blinked, disbelief tugging at her features. "David Mensah? Here? For me?" Her voice caught as she whispered his name, barely believing the moment. "I couldn't help but notice your dress at the party," he continued, stepping closer under the shared umbrella. "Did you design it yourself?" Amara nodded, her hands trembling as she tried to make sense of the words. "Yes, I made it from scraps," she admitted, unsure if he would understand, unsure if he would dismiss her. Instead, he looked at her for a long, thoughtful moment. "Then you've turned scraps into art," he said quietly, yet with a weight that made her heart lift. Amara's lips parted, and she felt a small, tentative smile form. Could someone really see the value in what she had struggled so hard to create? He reached into his pocket and handed her a small card, elegant and simple. "I'm looking for authentic designers for an upcoming campaign," he said. "People who create from the heart. If you're interested, I'd love to see your work." Amara stared at the card, the rain glistening on its surface, her hands shaking. Shock, disbelief, and cautious hope swirled within her, each emotion stronger than the last. The car door closed, and he drove away, leaving her standing under the soft glow of the streetlight. But for the first time that night, she didn't feel the cold. The rain fell around her, yet it seemed less like a burden and more like a baptism, washing away the doubt and fear. She held the card tightly, her fingers trembling, her heart pounding with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Could this really be happening? Could my work finally be seen for what it truly is? The thought filled her with a quiet, fierce determination. Every stitch, every scrap, every sleepless night had led to this moment. For the first time, she felt the beginnings of a dream turning real. In the hush of the rainy night, Amara understood something profound. Sometimes, the world sees your worth when you least expect it, and when it does, it can change everything. The small apartment was a hive of quiet energy, bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp. Rolls of fabric lay scattered across the floor, sketches pinned to the walls, and the hum of the old sewing machine filled the night air. Amara sat at the center of it all, scissors in hand, her eyes focused and unwavering. Beside her, Tio sorted colors, fabrics, and threads, always ready with encouragement or a gentle word. They had been working for hours, yet neither noticed the passage of time. Each dress told a story, one of sadness, stitched in soft blues, calm yet poignant. One of courage, bold reds and shimmering gold, fierce and defiant. And finally, one of rebirth, pure white, flowing, serene, and full of quiet power. Every cut, every stitch, every careful detail was infused with Amara's heart, her struggles, and her dreams. Could 3 dresses capture the journey of a lifetime? She wondered silently, her fingers trembling slightly as they moved over the delicate fabric. Her heart ached, but in that ache, she felt something new: hope. This was not just preparation for a showcase. It was a reclaiming of her voice, her identity, and her courage. Tio looked at her with a soft smile. "Amara, you've poured yourself into these pieces," he said. "They're not just dresses, they're stories, your stories. People will feel that." Amara nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face, letting herself absorb the reassurance. "Maybe the world is finally ready to see me for who I am," she thought, a quiet determination stirring in her chest. Hours turned into the early morning, and the 3 dresses slowly came to life. Each fabric held meaning beyond its color. The blue dress carried her quiet strength through hardship. The red and gold shimmered with bravery born of pain, and the white gown radiated the calm, renewed power of a soul that had endured and risen. Amara ran her hands over the white gown, feeling its soft folds, its flowing lines. She knew instantly it would be the one. "This is the dress for the showcase," she whispered to Tio, her voice steady but full of emotion. "It's who I am now, reborn. Ready?" Tio nodded, pride shining in his eyes. "Then wear it with courage. Show them the strength in your story." As they packed the dresses carefully for the long day ahead, Amara paused, taking a deep breath. The room, once chaotic with fabric and sketches, now felt sacred, a small temple of her creativity and resilience. Every stitch, every choice of color, every painstaking moment of effort had led to this, her chance to reveal her heart to the world. She looked at the 3 gowns one last time, a quiet smile forming. All the struggles, the tears, the nights spent alone, it was worth it. The feeling was both heavy and light. Heavy with the weight of what she had endured, light with the promise of what was to come. In that night filled with effort, passion, and unspoken dreams, Amara learned something simple yet profound. Creation is not just about what the world sees, but about the courage to show your true self. The grand hall buzzed with anticipation, cameras flashing and whispers of excitement weaving through the crowd. The spotlight swung across the room, illuminating the elegant designs displayed around the stage. And then, all at once, it paused on her. Amara stepped forward, wearing the white gown that symbolized rebirth, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum. Could this really be my moment? She wondered, breath catching with a mixture of fear and hope. David Mensah, standing tall at the center of the stage, smiled warmly as he raised his hand to address the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying with calm authority, "allow me to introduce the designer whose work inspired our next collection, Amara Collins." A hush fell over the crowd. Cameras clicked furiously, journalists leaned forward, and murmurs of awe spread like wildfire. Amara felt their eyes on her, but this time, they weren't judging. They were celebrating. Every step she took toward the stage felt surreal yet grounding. The years of struggle, of quiet nights sewing scraps into beauty, of holding back tears in the shadow of ridicule, all led to this. All the doubt, all the hurt. "It brought me here," she thought, a surge of pride coursing through her. Her pulse raced, not with fear, but with a strange, exhilarating courage. David gestured to the gown she had worn months ago to her mother's birthday party. The very dress everyone had mocked. "This dress," he said, his voice gentle yet proud, "sparked the vision for our new collection, Root and Revival." True design isn't about expensive labels or glittering fabrics. It's about stories stitched into fabric. Pain turned into beauty. The audience erupted into applause, the sound echoing like thunder through the hall. Tears filled Amara's eyes, but this time they were not of sadness. They were of triumph, of long-awaited recognition. She smiled softly, taking in the faces around her, the flashes of cameras capturing a moment she had only dreamed of. Lydia, standing across the room, looked stunned, her confidence faltering as she realized the sister she had once belittled was now being celebrated for the very passion she had ignored. David stepped forward, taking her hand gently and raising it. The applause swelled, deafening, as the crowd rose to their feet. Amara's chest tightened, not with anxiety, but with a profound sense of validation. She had been seen, not for wealth, not for glamour, but for her heart, her courage, and her creativity. All those years of hiding, all the nights of silent struggle. It was worth it, she thought, letting the warmth of the moment wash over her. Every stitch of her past, every small act of resilience, had led to this affirmation of her talent and her spirit. As cameras continued to flash and journalists approached with questions, Amara realized something deeper than fame or recognition. It was not the applause that defined her worth. It was the journey she had taken to honor her true self. She had turned pain into purpose, scraps into art, and doubt into courage. And in that luminous hall, standing beside the man who had believed in her from the start, Amara Collins finally understood the power of staying true to one's heart. The house felt different that evening, quieter yet warmer, as if it had been holding its breath for this very moment. Amara stepped through the front door, still glowing from the showcase, her heart fluttering with nerves and hope. She didn't know exactly what to expect. Would Lydia gloat, sneer, or pretend nothing had happened? Could we ever truly be whole again? She wondered, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Lydia was waiting in the living room, her usual confident posture softened, her makeup smudged, and eyes red from tears. She took a hesitant step forward. I just wanted to be the one Mom was proud of, she said softly, voice trembling. I didn't mean to hurt you so much. The words hung in the air, fragile yet sincere. Amara's chest tightened as she listened, the memories of ridicule and cold laughter surfacing for a fleeting moment. But anger won't build the bridges I want, she thought, letting her breath steady. Amara smiled gently, extending her arms. You still can, Lydia, she said, her voice calm but full of warmth. But you don't have to tear me down to rise. There's enough space for both of us. Tears welled in Lydia's eyes as she stepped forward and hugged her sister tightly. For a moment, the room was silent except for their quiet breaths. The years of rivalry, jealousy, and unspoken hurt melting away in a single embrace. From the doorway, Mrs. Collins watched, her usual stern expression softened by emotion. She approached slowly, placing a gentle hand on Amara's shoulder. Her voice quivered slightly. I see now. I judged you too harshly, she whispered. I thought elegance meant money, labels, and appearances, but you've shown me it comes from the heart. Amara's eyes glistened as she returned her mother's gaze, the past resentments fading into quiet understanding. The three of them stood together, a fragile circle of love and forgiveness, each heartbeat connecting them in a way words could never fully capture. Amara felt a deep relief, a weight lifted from her chest. Her success had never been about revenge. It had always been about growth, courage, and staying true to herself. She realized that the same hands that had stitched her dresses also had the power to mend the threads of her family. Could love truly overcome years of pain? She thought, smiling softly to herself. The room, once filled with tension, now carried warmth, laughter, and the promise of healing. In that quiet, tender moment, Amara understood that forgiveness was not a sign of weakness but of strength. She had risen not by stepping over others, but by lifting herself, and in doing so, she could lift those she loved, too. As the evening settled into calm, the three women shared stories, laughter, and a newfound respect for one another. Amara knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but the bonds they had rebuilt that night would be a foundation strong enough to carry them through anything. The small hall was alive with color, laughter, and the soft rustle of fabrics. Bright sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the edges of dresses hanging from racks and mannequins. Amara stood near the entrance, taking in the sight of her young students, each one buzzing with excitement, hands busy with needles, threads, and sketches. Could my story really help them dream bigger? She wondered, a quiet warmth spreading through her chest. Welcome, everyone to threads of grace. Amara began, her voice gentle yet confident, carrying through the room. This is a space for your creativity, your imagination, and your courage. Here, every design tells a story, and every stitch carries your voice. The girls' eyes sparkled as they looked at her, seeing not just a teacher, but someone who had lived the journey they hoped to take. Amara walked among them, stopping to admire a girl's delicate embroidery, another's bold, colorful sketch. "Don't be afraid to start simple," she encouraged. "Every masterpiece begins with one thread." She demonstrated how to transform leftover fabrics into beautiful, sustainable pieces, showing them that fashion didn't require expensive materials, just heart, dedication, and creativity. Around the room, laughter mingled with the hum of sewing machines. Parents peeked in, journalists snapped photos, and local designers whispered admiration. Amara moved from student to student, offering gentle guidance and words of encouragement. She realized that what she had once yearned for, recognition, validation, was now flowing outward. She wasn't just creating fashion. She was creating confidence, inspiration, and hope. "I never imagined my pain could turn into someone else's courage," she thought quietly as a young girl showed her a newly finished dress with a shy, proud smile. Amara knelt to her level, eyes glistening. "See how strong your imagination is?" she said softly. "You have the power to make the world more beautiful." The girl's eyes widened, and she nodded, filled with pride. From the back of the hall, Mrs. Collins watched silently, wearing a simple dress Amara had made for her. Pride and awe filled her gaze as she whispered, "That's my daughter." Lydia, too, stood quietly, recording her sister's words on her phone, realizing that true success was measured not by fame, but by the impact one leaves on others. The day passed with stories shared, skills learned, and bonds formed. Amara paused to look around, the hum of creativity and laughter filling her heart. Her designs were now traveling far beyond her small apartment, on the runways, in magazines, and in the dreams of young girls eager to create. She understood, deeply, that this was her purpose, and the quiet peace she felt was more fulfilling than any award or spotlight. Could one dress, one journey, truly change the world? She thought, smiling as she watched her students stitch with determination and joy. The answer was clear. Each stitch, each lesson, each inspired heart was a ripple of her journey made real.